Beerfield Fantasy Football, episode 165, take 2. I'm already recording, so go ahead.
Hey guys, big shout out to today's show sponsor, Squad QL. The roster management assistant to help you win your league this year. Squad QL directly connects to any league on Yahoo, ESPN, or CBS, pulling in your roster, league settings, and scoring system, provide recommendations on your waiver wire moves, starting lineup decisions, and even some trade recommendations for you to give that extra advantage you need to win. Head to squadql.com to download the all-in-one fantasy football manager app. SquadQL is brought to you by the creators of RotoQL, the leading daily fantasy lineup optimizer trusted by 100,000 DF players worldwide. Available at rotoql.com. Let's roll. Hey guys, welcome back to Beerfield Fantasy Football.
What is up? What is up? What is up?
We're through a game. It was a little ugly.
I want my money back, NFL. God damn it. I want my money back.
Hey, we got to play trivia during that game because it was more distracting. So.
And we would have done pretty well, I think. We weren't actually playing. We were just the next room over.
Yelling answers from the next room over.
All right, guys, welcome to Beerfield Fantasy Football. It is a Friday episode in season. So now what we're going to have for you today, we're going to go through all the news that's dropped since Wednesday. Go ahead and jump through and let you know what happened in the Thursday night game. We're going to go ahead and preview all 15 games on Sunday and Monday. And then we do have an award to give out at the end of the episode. Social media, where you can find us, we're at BeerfieldFF on Twitter. Individually, I'm Nick Sparts. We've got Dan Thury across from me.
At ThuryBFF. What's up, guys?
And to my left, Christopher Hopper.
At Hot BFF with 2 Ps. How y'all doing on this fine Friday?
All right. We got a busy episode here, so I want to run through this really, really quick. As I mentioned, BeerfieldFF is Twitter. It's also Instagram and Untapped if you want can art. Various start-sits that Dan's going to do on there. We got our beer reviews for Untapped there. Reminder, 10:30 a.m. Central Time. We will be streaming live on YouTube. That's Beerfield Fantasy Football. Go ahead and subscribe. We'll be 10:30 a.m. Central Time. All three of us will be here. Close enough.
Give or take.
We'll see. We'll see Hopper's level
of
hurtness.
So we'll be jumping on there. We're going to go over news, weather, which apparently there is going to be some weather to cover already with the hurricane that's over our heads right now. We'll go over start sits. Any questions you guys have in the chat, we'll be there to take care of you guys. We generally be on for about half an hour to 45 minutes, from about 10:30 to probably about 11:15 or so.
And then we head to the bar.
To watch all the games and tweet all the rage thoughts that we have during the game. Please drop all questions and comments on videos on YouTube or tweet at BeerfieldFF if you want to get a hold of us. I've been answering a ton of start sit questions the last 48 hours. Keep them coming.
Write some of the better ones down too.
I will do so.
And we can talk about them.
Hell yeah.
And as a reminder, we do have merchandise and Patreon available if you want to support the show directly. Otherwise, keep commenting and liking on all our videos. Leave reviews on iTunes. It helps boost the visibility of the podcast. And as always, be sure to tell all your friends about us. We want to keep growing. Let's hit a beer preview.
He got through the whole intro and didn't even wish me happy birthday. I'm a little offended. Like, publicly, on air.
Happy birthday,
the people need to know. Thank you, Dan. I'm glad I have one friend on this set. Aww, I'm kidding.
I'm surprised you didn't play the Titanic music for that.
Where did it go? There it is.
Redo.
That's how you elegantly mix dewdrops.
I just was refusing to talk until you did the Beerfield drop. I was just going to sit here silently. Happy birthday. We do have some whiskey with us as well to sip on through this episode.
Damn, I should have waited longer.
Hey, you would have been the one reason it was an hour and a half episode if you pulled that shit.
That's true. I'd have gotten killed.
So we have a Mango Mosaic Pale Ale by Breckenridge Brewing Company on today's episode. It's Breckenridge's first time on the podcast. I don't know how much they distributed out here until pretty recently. They're very big in the Colorado area.
The only other thing I've had from them, I think, is their vanilla porter, which is also very good.
That's everywhere, but I started seeing a lot of their other stuff in the last month.
Yeah, that was literally the only thing I'd seen from them around here. That's very good, too, but that's not what we're reviewing today.
Yep, they're based out of Littleton, Colorado. As I mentioned, first time on the podcast. It's a 5.5% pale ale made with Mosaic hops, brewed with mango. We'll drop the full review when we're through the noon games on the previews. News.
gonna buy a kazoo so I can play along with that one day.
Bump, 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 bump. All right, let's run through this news here. Marshawn Lynch, with his groin injury, made limited at Friday's practice. They play Monday, so he's expected to still be able to go, but I do have some concerns about his workload.
Especially with Dougie Fresh there. So flex only probably for Marshawn this week.
He plays on Monday, so he should be in your flex anyway.
Yeah,
well, yes.
But yes, he's probably more of an
Tamper
RB3.
What I meant was RB3 in that area, because Doug Martin should also be in that area now too. I don't expect them, if he's ailing, to lay on him hard in week 1.
If news isn't better by Saturday, I would start to look for other replacements, just in case you're not locked into having to play like a Jalen Richard.
And you can find out all the updated Marshawn Lynch news on our live stream on Sunday morning.
Yes, we'll be sure to talk about any news that breaks on any injuries.
Hell yeah.
Speaking of injuries, Marlon Mack, with his hamstring injury, actually returned to practice on Thursday. Practice Friday as well. He may be able to go in week 1, which is a bit of a shock.
You fade everyone.
I'd still expect, you fade everyone, because I would think he would be limited also. But if all systems are going week 2, or you get some good news next week, then I'll go with Marlon Mack. He looked great the 3 runs he had in preseason.
Yeah, he's easily the most talented back in this backfield. He just needs to stay healthy,
which he hasn't been able to do.
That's been a bit of a problem. But yeah, if he's playing in week 1 here in a limited fashion, I want no running backs in Indy.
Yeah, same.
NFL Network Scene Rappaport reports Devonta Freeman's knee is quote-unquote fine.
Fine.
I mean, it was obviously something if he tweaked it. Maybe it was precautionary. They do have Tevin Coleman, so they had no reason to risk running Freeman back out there. So
yeah, it was also hurry-up mode. Freeman's the better Coleman's the better pass catcher. So
yeah.
If they have they have 9 days off before they play next?
Yeah, 9 days off. He'll be fine.
I'm not overly worried about it, but something to monitor once we hit practices on Tuesday, Wednesday next week. Aaron Wilson of the Houston Chronicle reports Will Fuller with his hamstring injury could be a game-time decision for week 1 against the Patriots. Another reminder, check out the live stream on Sunday.
I had Will Fuller decently high, too, because the Patriots get burned by speed.
Yep, that would be a ding to Watson. Bump to Hopkins, because there's no one left to throw to.
Ellington.
Yeah, I guess it'd be Ellington.
Bump to Hopkins, because that's all they're going to throw to.
I wouldn't sleep on.
No, I wouldn't sleep on Ellington either.
In that scenario.
It's the second highest scoring game of the week per over-under, so expect a lot of points in this one.
Also per my rankings.
Yeah.
All right, Browns coach Hugh Jackson confirms Josh Gordon will be on a pitch count week 1 against the Steelers.
Who's shocked by this?
I'm not. He missed most of training camp. He's not up to game speed. He dealt with a hamstring thing after he got there. So
immediately. So there's probably some conditioning issues.
So
there's a lot of things.
You don't want him to overexert it, so they'll pick and choose with him and let Callaway work.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of 2 wide receiver sets with Landry and Callaway probably.
Yeah.
More on that later.
Rashard Matthews suggested his snaps will be limited early in the season.
He's coming off of whatever injury he had this week. So, Taywan Taylor looked really good in preseason, though, and if Rashard Matthews does miss any time, Taywan Taylor's a very interesting own.
Yeah, currently my viewpoint is if Matthews is playing, I probably want neither. If Matthews is out, Taylor's an interesting start.
Yes.
Yep. Cleveland Plain Dealers, Mary Kay Cabot, I think it is, reports the Browns.
Mary Kay Cabot.
Browns will check back with free agent Des Bryant following week 1. This is due to a rule that you have to guarantee salaries for veterans who are signed going into week 1. If you sign them after the fact, you can cut them with no guaranteed money on the contract.
It's interesting. With the wide receiver starting week 1, you kind of worry about their ability to pick up the playbook and how useful they're going to be out of the gate. So, this is like a you up text, I guess.
Yeah, it's the
230.
It's the contract equivalent of a booty call.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that'll be kind of interesting. Darkwa could also be another name to look for after he wouldn't have to have a guaranteed deal as well after week 1. Eagles place wide receiver Matt Collins with his groin injury on injured reserve. He'll be gone till at least week 8.
All right. So the herd thens.
Yep, we'll talk about their receiving core once we get to the recap.
Yep.
Hayden Hurst remains sidelined and will likely be out till week 3 or later. He's already been confirmed out for week 1.
This was already speculated.
Nick Boyle, interesting stream.
Yep.
Vance McDonald with his foot injuries out week 1 against the Browns. So Jesse
James, let's go.
Tamper a little bit.
Yeah, he wasn't
very good last year with when he was just the sole tight end.
Fire up the Outlaw. Well, there's so many options there, though.
Well,
So
one less option with Bell.
exactly.
Joey Bosa with his foot injury originally was listed as in danger of missing Sunday's opener against the Chiefs. He has now been ruled out.
Helps
Mahomes, helps Hunt.
It helps Mahomes. Yeah, it helps Mahomes. It helps Hunt. I mean, they still have Melvin Ingram, so the pass rush isn't going to be lacking.
But last I checked, 2 is greater than 1.
It is
Some days.
most days. But still, I don't think the pass rush is going to be lacking. I don't have any concerns about that secondary either. Granted, Tyreek Hill's probably going to torch them, but that's besides the point.
I will talk about his history against the Chiefs when we get to that game.
Yeah.
His own team?
His own team?
That's amazing.
With the Chiefs against the Chargers, let's rephrase that.
It's not been great. Or has it?
No, it's been good.
We'll talk about it.
I'm in suspense now.
Falcons strong safety Keanu Neal tore his ACL. He will miss the rest of the 2018 season.
Yeah, I wonder if he went back in and tried to play on a torn ACL.
Wouldn't be the first time someone's tried that.
And then just...
I bet you-
he was in a lot of pain the second time he went down.
I bet you he tore it on that second time.
He may have done a partial tear and then fully torn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's done.
But
Yeah.
that really hurts the back of that secondary and run defense too, because he was kind of everything to their center field.
Especially if Tufan
Yeah.
can, if he can't stay healthy. He got banged up in the game too.
Yep.
Yeah, though didn't seem to matter much for the Eagles in this one. They only put up 18 points against them. Let's recap Thursday night.
What the hell happened?
All right, Eagles win this one 18-12. Matt Ryan tried to drive him down the field and terribly chucked the ball into the end zone 4 times unsuccessfully to try to win this game. It didn't happen.
Threw it out of the end zone 3 times.
Yeah, it was ugly.
If you're going to go down in that moment, go down with an interception.
It was like watching the divisional game last year.
Yeah, it was
a fucking train wreck of a game.
All right. So did you actually recap this, or do you want me to take lead? We should have discussed this beforehand.
We should have. On-air production meetings. No, you had notes, so I expected you to take lead, and I would comment as we go, because that's normally how we do recaps.
Okay. So Eagles do win this one 18-12. Falcons side, Matt Ryan really struggled in this one. He was throwing ducks all night. He was 21 of 43, 251 yards and a pick. Outside of throwing to Julio, he could get nothing going in this game. And even some of the Julio throws were bad.
And he looked like he had no zip on his throws, and that downfield throw had so much air under it. So I don't know if it was a weather thing, if he was just fighting wind or what, but he had no strength behind a lot of his throws.
He was also had some weird release points on a lot of his throws.
Yeah.
The one that he should have hit Julio for a touchdown on that would just died. He lobbed that way too high in the air at his release point.
Which tells me that the arm strength isn't there.
I wonder if
now.
there'll be some news that breaks out that he's been battling something, because normally he's not the world's strongest arm in the league, but it's usually bad.
It's
average.
never been a question for me before, though, and it was ugly in this game.
It was. So I don't know if it was a wind thing. I don't know if he's fighting something. I don't know if he's just not quite in shape, and his arm's not quite in shape yet.
Yeah,
But
I didn't notice anything wrong in the preseason, though. That was what was weird.
Right.
What I kind of on as a side, I was really down on Matt Ryan this year. I was kind of calling him as an overdrafted player, a best a little bit. I wasn't expecting him to try to prove me right in one game. So we'll see if he can get this together. Julio was. They had 39 targets in the game at players. Julio had 19 of them.
Well, I don't know who else you. Ball boys. Who else is getting logged targets here?
Why is Dan Quinn going out there running routes?
So between the 20s, he was awesome. And once they got into the red zone, they seemed to forget that they could use Julio Jones creatively.
What's up, Steve Sarkisian?
Well, I'm splitting the blame on this one. Sarkisian was not play calling well, but then Matt Ryan was also not doing anything well to go with it.
First off, he's got to be on the field to throw to him in the red zone, which he wasn't at first. And second off, you can't throw it out of the back of the end zone. The play calling down in the red zone was just absolutely atrocious. Matt Ryan was fine between the 20s, and they got to the red zone and forgot how to football.
Yeah, the red zone offense was some of the worst I've ever seen. And it was, I blame both Matt Ryan and Sarkisian on that one.
But Julio got fed, and he always gets fed against the Eagles. So
yep. So he was the only receiver worth a damn. Apparently Ridley was in for, I think it was like 65% of snaps, but only had 2 targets.
No,
Yeah.
2 targets.
No, he was there, but he was doing a lot of motion and just a lot of decoy stuff. Everything was going to Julio, and then occasionally you'd see Austin Hooper and Sanu.
Yep, that was about it. Running game was a 10-9 split in Coleman's favor. He got the lone touchdown. It probably would have been Freeman's favor ever so slightly if it wasn't for his knee getting dinged up late in the game. But I think this kind of shows us that if it's a bad matchup, probably the correct answer is just avoid both.
If you can.
Just because if they're not on game script, they're not going to get enough touches.
Yeah, if you can. I mean,
Yeah.
that's only 19 carries in total.
No, touches, not carries.
Yeah.
Wow. It's only 19 touches for the running backs in total. So, yeah, that's concerning.
Yeah, it was real ugly in terms of work. Coleman and it saved his game with the late touchdown. That's about the only thing that kept him
He
from also
barely
being a
saved
dud.
that game.
Freeman was a dud.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's enough about the Falcons. I really hope they can get their offense together. This was not a good look. Eagles weren't much better offensively. Nick Foles was 19 of 34 for 117 yards.
He was inaccurate as all
34
hell.
attempts and 117 yards.
For those counting at home, 3.44 yards per attempt.
That's the Christian Ponder stat line right there, folks.
Yeah.
He was way off, too.
So in PPR leagues, he did help you slightly with a catch for 15 yards. This team desperately needs Wentz and Jeffrey back. And it sounds like we may be waiting till October.
This team desperately needs Wentz back first and foremost.
Wentz is more of a priority, but they need both.
Yeah. And I don't know how much of this, just disclaimer, it is week 1. I don't know how much of this is just the Falcons defense not giving up a ton of yak and having everybody blanketed. I don't know if it was play calling. I do know that Nick Foles was off. He wasn't throwing balls accurately or anything like that. The play calling was super conservative. Aguilar was 8 for 35?
Yeah, everything was within 5 or 10 yards of the line of scrimmage.
So they weren't trying to work the ball downfield.
Yeah, there was a couple shots to Wallace that were just bad throws.
Yeah, that and the one trick play. That's all it was.
Yeah, it was a lot of bad throws, and I don't even want to say lack of separation. It was just bad throws, and play calling was not to work the ball deep.
Yeah, and even when he was getting it to the receiver, it was often not in the right spot.
I got to think Wynn had to play a factor in this if no one took any shots.
Actually, from both, when you look at both quarterbacks play, I don't know. I didn't look at the weather report, but it had to have been windy.
We didn't have the sound on because, fucking trivia.
Yeah.
Running game was a weird three-headed monster. Sproles and Ajayi had the majority of the snaps. It was 15 touches for Ajayi, 12 for Sproles, 5 for Clement. Ajayi was basically the guy in the second half, though, and that's where he got both of his touchdowns.
And he's been battling a foot injury. So, to our listeners out there, yes, this may be a concern if this continues to move forward, but he got held back because of the injury. And you saw more Sproles come in because maybe they didn't want to use him that much or Ajayi that much. And then when they saw how bad Sproles and Clement were, they were like, fuck it, we got to put Ajayi in and win this game.
Clement didn't even get a ton of opportunity running the ball.
No,
It
It was a lot of Sproles.
Clement had 5 touches and no targets.
I'd expect Sproles' usage to fade and Ajayi's to go back up. I think this was purely a conservative call based on the injury. And then when they went in the second half down, I think they decided to lean on him a little bit more because when he did carry the ball, he was chunking off yards.
The offense looked the best when Ajayi was.
And he'll have 9 days to recover.
Yep.
Clement did have a nice run at the end, though.
Yeah, that set up a
unneeded juke that could have maybe gone for 6.
Set up the second Ajayi touchdown.
Yeah.
All right. So if your name wasn't Aguilar, Orts, or Sproles, Nick Foles was not aware you existed. He had 27 of his 34 targets go to one of those 3. Aguilar dominated the first half. Ertz dominated the second. They both finished with 10 targets, and Sproles had 7. Neither really had any serious production, though. It was all just PPR volume.
Yeah, it was short yardage.
So I'm going to mostly throw this out. Eagles defense looks awesome, so I'm going to generally try to avoid playing people against them. And I have a lot of concerns about this offense until Wentz is back, outside of maybe Ajayi.
Yeah, I'll be a little more optimistic if they had it easier.
Yeah,
more of a plus matchup, and maybe I'm so sticking with the weather.
They get the Buccaneers next week. That should help.
That should help.
I'm not fading them against the Buccaneers. If they go out against the Bucs and lay a dud, then I'm concerned. But you had a Thursday night game with a Super Bowl celebration, a weather delay, weather during the game, against a defense that is all right, above average.
Yeah.
It was a weird game, so I'm not ready to write it off because I'm not making excuses for them, but I'm not ready to write it off yet because of that.
I'm not writing them off, but I am going to slightly fade people.
I'm not worried yet. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, Ajayi, Aguilar, and Ertz, I think, are the only 3 that I'd be excited to start.
Those
next
three are the
week.
ones.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
those three absolutely until Jeffrey and Wentz get back. But yeah, those are the only three you're starting.
All right. Well, that's all I got on this game. Any other comments before we jump into 15 game previews?
All right, 15 game previews, and we're going to try to go rapid fire. Let's get into it.
Weekly preview.
All right, so each one of us took point on one of these. We're going to try to keep them down to 2 to 3 minutes each. So it's about a minute to a minute and a half per team. Kicking it off with Bucks at the Saints. I've got this one. Saints are 9.5 point favorites at home. It's a 49.5 point over under, so I'll expect a lot of points with a big lead for the Saints, is what Vegas is telling us. On the Buccaneers side, Saints were actually below average against quarterbacks last year. They came in 19th. Fitzpatrick only had 2 decent games last season, though, and they were both against significantly worse pass defenses. He went 8 for 15 for 68 yards and a touchdown and a half a play against them in 2017. So and Saints only allowed 20-plus points in 6-point passing touchdown format 7 times. It was Bradford, Brady, Stafford, Cousins, Goff, Newton, and Winston. So I don't like Fitz in this one unless you're in the absolute deepest 2 quarterback formats. Toss him out.
I
Yeah.
don't like Fitz in any of them.
That was, yeah.
So Saints were average against the run last year. They finished 14th, but Barber did go for 89 yards on 19 touches with a touchdown in Week 17 against the same Saints team. They haven't really changed the defense that much.
And he's clearly the guy.
So there's no one else fighting with him. He's going to be the primary pass catcher. Sims is gone. He's at least a low-end RB3 flex play at best, and he has some upside. So if you're on the fence about starting him, I wouldn't hesitate too much unless he has some really nice options.
This is a Lamar Miller level start. Wow.
Not quite Lamar Miller good, but getting close. Evans,
No, I think he meant Lamar Miller on an average week.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like, on that level.
Not this week in particular. Got it.
Yeah.
Evans was terrible against the Saints in 2017. He had 6 catches for 68 yards on 19 total targets. But he should be better than that in this one. He's due for a bounce back year. But it's definitely more of a mid to high wide receiver 2 than a wide receiver 1. So lower those expectations a little bit. On the flip side, Godwin was excellent in Week 17 against the Saints. He went for 102 yards and a touchdown while catching 7 of 12 targets. He's still probably seeing a split role, so I probably would try to avoid starting Godwin, but he's not a terrible choice if you're desperate for a flyer. Jackson faded down the stretch in 2017, under 8.5 points and half PPR for the last 3 games played. He was much better at the start of the year, but I'm not touching him right now. I want to see him start producing again. And then Saints allowed 0 double-digit tight end performances from Week 3 to 17 last season. It's a split workload between Brayton and Howard, who Fitzpatrick doesn't really target tight ends anyway. So unless you're in 2 tight end formats, do not start Howard or Brayton.
Bucks tight ends are a complete avoid until Winston's back, in my opinion.
Or it's an excellent matchup.
Or it's just an insane matchup.
So I don't think they catch the Browns or the Giants before Winston's back.
Right.
On the Saints side, Buccaneers were terrible against quarterbacks last year, finishing 10th worst. They're very safe to play against. They allowed at least 16 fantasy points to every team not started by Brett Hundley. Brees is my quarterback 2 this week just because I view him as incredibly safe. The floor is perfect for him right now.
Yep. I've got a league that I have Brees and Stafford in, and I'm starting Brees because I love this matchup for him.
Yep.
Buccaneers were 6th worst against the run last year. They should be better. They don't have their first-round pick, Vita Vea, in this one. He is going to miss. Kamara is a must-start, locked-in running back 1, and if you're looking for a desperation flex with some touchdown upside, Gillislee is not a bad choice. For example, if you lost Bell and you couldn't pick up Connor, Gillislee's not a bad consolation prize this week. They give up 7-plus games of 20-plus points to individual running backs, and Kamara got 2 of those, so he is top 5, top 6 for you this week. Buccaneers were dead last against wide receivers in 2017, so they should have a much better pass rush, but the secondary's not improved much. Michael Thomas was double digits in both matchups against them, so he's a safe wide receiver 1. I've got him top 3 just because I view him really safe this week. I am not going to start any of the wide receiver 2s on the Saints, though. It was usually one wide receiver feasting against the Buccaneers, and between Ginn, Smith, and Meredith splitting work, I don't know how these targets are going to shake out, so I'm avoiding all 3. Mm-hmm. Lastly, the Buccaneers were actually fantastic against tight ends, 3rd best in 2017. I don't think it's because the defense was good. I think it's because people didn't have to throw the tight ends.
Oh, and the Saints don't really have anybody locked and loaded as a tight end. So
yep, I personally would not like to use Ben Watson to test my theory, but there are a couple situations like I would actually start him over George Kittle this week against the Vikings.
That's fair.
But there's just a few players I would use him over, but for the most part, I'd avoid Ben Watson. And then Saints, DST, and Lutz are both excellent plays this week.
About chalk for what we thought.
Yeah.
We think we know about the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
and the Saints.
We'll try a hand.
So we don't actually know anything.
No.
Nope.
That's just what we think we know so far. Dan, you're up next with Bengals at the Colts. Colts are favored by 3, 48.5 point over-under, so Vegas is expecting some scoring.
Yep, and it's going to be like that. So we'll start with the Bengals here. So Andy Dalton was Nick's start of the week, stream of the week for the quarterback position. If you want to go back and listen to that episode for a little bit more on why, Colts also gave up 17 points per game to the quarterback position, including 6 300-yard games and 23 passing touchdowns. Dalton is a great stream this week. As for the Colts' run defense on paper, per stats looked even worse than what it actually was. 120 yards per game was allowed, 6th worst, 15 touchdowns on the ground, tied for 5th most. But they only gave up 3.9 yards per carry. And with the struggles between Mixon and Gio, between the tackles this preseason and dating back to last season, you're expecting more volume. Now, game script should show that, but it's still a wait to see. They also allowed the 4th lowest amount of targets running back in 2017.
And
So
there's
you're
been
really
some
hoping.
draft capital on that defensive line, too.
Yeah, so looks great on paper. Just don't expect maybe a top 5 RB finish for Mixon.
So you're thinking safe, but not an explosive.
Yes.
league.
What about Gio?
Gio, I still think is a flex play just because he's looked better between the tackles, and I think game script's going to be good enough. Well, I think both running backs could see opportunity.
Okay.
As for the receivers, AJ Green's obviously a must start, but John Ross is a decent flyer, given his newly anointed wide receiver 2 status on the C. Indy did give up a league high 12.9 yards per receptions last year, 257.7 receiving yards per game. 2 receivers. Just makes John Ross a decent flex play if you need a boom play if you're unsure about your week 1 matchup. As for the tight ends against Indy, 7.9 points were given to that position at 17th, 11th most. When Eifers healthy, he's a touchdown machine. Obviously makes him a good tight end play this week in a worthy stream. Indy also gave up 8 touchdowns to tight ends, 4th most. You're playing Randy Bullock because a lot of scoring, and Indy's defense is a decent stream
And it's in a dome.
And in terms of streaming wise, yes, Luck is back, but he's not a stranger to throwing picks and taking sacks, and this is one of the worst O lines in football.
Against one of the best defensive fronts.
Yeah. Geno Atkins is a beast. As for the Colts, you drafted Luck to start the season, and while though the Bengals defense isn't bad, they did give up 15.49 points to QBs last season, about middle of the road, but they allowed 0 30-yard passers. Tamper expectations on Luck until he gets kind of his feet under him.
I'll say part of that was also game script. The Bengals were losing a lot of games.
Yeah, but still.
A lot.
And they do expect a lot of scoring. So I'm not saying bench Luck. You just may not get...
Lower those expectations.
Yeah, lower those expectations. A little bit of rust there. And with Mac potentially playing now, I would start 0 running backs in this matchup. You're going to only start T.Y. Hilton for the receivers. Chester Rogers may be listed as the number 2, but Ryan Grant's there, and the tight ends are better options anyways. Plus, Bengals gave up the second fewest points to receivers in 17, only 16.15 points to the position. Hilton also struggled last year against some 2 for 15 on 7 targets. I love Doyle this week as my start of the week for the tight end position. Great matchup, a lot of volume there. And Ebron, again, isn't a bad flex play just because of the amount of volume that could happen in this game. And you should never play their defense. And Vinatieri is a good play.
Yeah, I'd say Vinatieri's okay. He killed me week 1 last year, but hopefully
he's in a
better.
dome, a lot of scoring.
Yep, it's in a dome. But pretend their defense doesn't exist.
Yeah.
All right. So I got...
Not hard to do. Most of the time they don't.
Yep. I got 6 games today. Hopper's only got 4, so it's going to be back to me here. 49ers are
the Thursday game. I forgot about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
49ers at the Vikings. Vikings are favored by 6, over under a 46 in this one. So starting with the 49ers, Vikings were 3rd best against quarterbacks last year, only allowing 3 quarterbacks to even score 16 total points. Jimmy got lauded for his amazing game against Jacksonville, where he put up 23, but otherwise he was only 16.1 points per game, and it was against such defenses like Houston, Tennessee, and the Rams' second stringers.
Which are not good secondaries in Houston, Tennessee, or the Rams' second stringers.
So I don't like him this one. I would even be trying to avoid him in 2 quarterback formats.
If you can.
Yep.
Vikings were the number 1 defense against running backs last year, only allowing 7 backs to score in double digits. All but one of those had to score a touchdown to do so. The only one who didn't was Bell. So if you're hoping for 10 points or more, my money's going to go on Morris, but I view them both as RB4s. Try to avoid both if possible. 11 receivers only scored double digits against the Vikings in 2017, so I'd look elsewhere than Goodwin and Garcon if you can. If I'm picking one, it's Goodwin, because he should draw Waynes because he's the faster of the two, whereas Garcon is more likely to draw Rhodes.
I hate Garcon's matchup.
Garcon is a 4, whereas Goodwin is more of a 3, and if you have to start him, you're probably okay.
Yeah.
On the flip side, Vikings were also the best against tight ends, so this defense just crushed everyone from the look of it from fantasy standpoint. Only 4 players scored more than 6.3 fantasy points in half-point PPR against them. Kittle is just a sit for you. I'd rather start Clay, Tyler Eifert, Ben Watson over Kittle this week.
Yeah, not a good George Kittle week.
Nope.
The only play I really kind of like from the 49ers is Robbie Gould. It's in a dome. It's going to be tough for them to score points, so they may be settling for a lot of field
I wouldn't
goals.
even like that because Vikings don't give up a lot of yards. So.
And I said like, not love.
Yeah, well, that's even then.
Do not. I wouldn't even consider the 49ers defense. They were terrible last year. I expect them to be better, but probably not a big jump in week 1.
Yeah, it's not anything to be scared of yet.
All right. Vikings on the flip side, the 49ers were awful against opposing quarterbacks, allowing 9 quarterbacks to score 18+ and finishing 4th worst in points per game against opposing quarterbacks. Cousins scored 28.8 against him last year when they matched up in week 6, so he's top 7 for all of us, and he's a must-start QB this week. They were also
a must-start QB most weeks.
Yeah, no shit.
Like even more than usual this week.
Yeah.
So he's an excellent quarterback, and it's a great matchup. 49ers were terrible against the run as well. They were 8th worst in that. People are somewhat worried about Murray taking touches from Cook, but I deep dove it, and multiple teams had 2 players score in the double digits against the Niners in the same game. So I actually don't mind Cook as a top 10 play, and if you're desperate for a guy who might get some touchdown upside, Murray's not an awful play. 49ers were pretty middle of the pack against wide receivers. Diggs and Thielen should still both be started in this game. With the improvement at quarterback, both are healthy. I have them both pegged as wide receiver 2s, and there's some potential wide receiver 1 upside from either one if one of them goes off in this game. They were above average against tight ends, but it tended to be against not so great tight ends. When they ran into Witten, Ingram, Ertz, Graham, and Walker, they all scored in the double digits. So Rudolph should be started. It's a mid tight end 1 this week, and he's as good as bet as any tight end to score a touchdown.
Mid tight end 1 most weeks.
And then I would feel very comfortable starting the Vikings defense or Daniel Carlson this week.
Let's put it this way. Just from what you're saying and the way that I view this game, if you have any vacuum opinion of a fantasy player, the 49ers defense is that vacuum.
They are the vacuum.
They are the vacuum that this is in. You don't adjust up or down. It's just, what do you think about this player? All right, cool. That plays against the 49ers.
For the most part, the only one I really upped at all was Murray. Bills at the Ravens. Dan, that's you.
All right, so we'll start with the Bills here. It's a 40.5 over-under. I'm pretty sure the Ravens are favored by at least 7 at this point. There's only 3 Bills players I would even consider playing this week: LaShawn McCoy, Charles Clay, and Kelvin Benjamin. There's by no means are you going to start any quarterback against this Ravens defense. Ravens gave up 19.2 points to the running backs last season, 9th most. They're also middle of the road against pass catching backs, giving up 77 receptions and 103 targets. They're a stout run defense, though, in the red zone, only giving up 17 carries on goal-to-goal situations. Floor game for McCoy.
They don't let him get red zone carries anyway, so who cares?
As for Kelvin Benjamin, Jimmy Smith may not play in this game just because of that. That gives Benjamin some flex considerations. Him and Peterman looked okay in the preseason in some of their games. But the Ravens also did only give up 16.78 points per game to the receiver position, 4th least last year. As for tight ends, though, they were a little friendly to tight ends last season. They gave us 6.76 to the position, which was 12th most. Clay, when healthy, always finds a way to get his own. He finished with 3 tight end 1 finishes in his first 5 games last year before getting hurt.
Charles Clay before he's hurt.
But he's not hurt yet.
Yeah.
It's like Zach Ertz and Jordan Reed. He hasn't hurt himself yet. He's worth that potential flex consideration.
Jordan Reed's going to have a healthy season, damn it.
But that was with Tyrod Taylor. This is Nathan Peterman and or Josh Allen, so it's really difficult to say. I would even just only play McCoy. Their defense isn't a worse play this week, but the Ravens, they're a lot better offensively, in my opinion, and just how bad the Bills' run defense is. This could be a lot of scoring in general.
The big concern I have for the Bills, too, if you're starting them, is how bad the game script could get.
Yeah. Yep. Moving on to the Ravens. Joe Flacco is an easy pass for me this week. Well, the Bills have a dumpster fire of an a dumpster fire of a roster and offense. Their defense isn't too bad. They only gave up 12.8 points.
Specifically, their pass defense.
Yeah. Giving up, they only gave up 12.84 points to quarterbacks last season. That was the fifth fewest, and only 300-yard passers. Flacco gets very minimal 2 QB considerations from me. But their biggest weakness is their run game. After that Darius trade last year to Jacksonville, they were the worst run defense, and they finished as the worst run defense. That's just how bad they were. Collins is Nick's start of the week. If you want to hear more stats on that, go back and listen to Wednesday's episode. This also gives Buck Allen some floor, which makes him a decent flex option this week if you're desperate because you lost Bell and you didn't get Connor and all that shit. As for the receiving core, the Bills again were strong against receivers last year. 17 points per game was the 5th lowest. Game script may actually flip this, makes this more of a running game. Crabtree to me is still a flex consideration, but even lower that expectation. And John Brown is a deep league dart throw because he may get a couple deep ball chances. Nick Boyle's listed as a starter, and Flacco has historically used his tight ends. Buffalo also, they gave up the 5th most points to tight ends in 7.73 points per game, but only gave up 4 touchdowns. I don't like Boyle that much this week unless it's 2 tight end leagues. And this is the number 1 defense for most people this week. So you're playing the Ravens defense, and Tucker we trust.
All right. So optimally, you're playing Collins, Tucker, and the Ravens defense, and that'd be about it. Maybe Crabtree.
And Buck Allen. I don't hate.
And maybe
Buck.
Yeah.
All right. Hoppers, you got your first one here. Highest scoring game of the week. Texans at the Patriots. Patriots favored by 6.5 and an over-under of 51.
Yep, I projected this to be a very high-scoring game as well. Let's start out with the Texans. I want to highlight, first off, Deshaun Watson. Pat's defense had 9 quarterbacks go over 300 yards, 7 have multiple touchdown games. Watson was 22 of 33 for 301 and 2 touchdowns last year with 41 more on the ground. And the Patriots lost their defensive coordinator. So Deshaun Watson could give you a top 3 quarterback week, and I fully expect him to. DeAndre Hopkins, you're obviously starting him. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of depth there. He's always going to get targets. You start your studs. Lamar Miller, if you're thinking about sitting him, don't. Patriots allowed 7 backs over 45 receiving yards. They also allowed 13 backs over 4 yards per carry. That's with a minimum of 10 attempts last season. They did only allow 5 rushing touchdowns, but Miller's going to be the guy. There shouldn't be anybody that really spells him. He's going to be the receiving back. He's going to get the carries. So for volume alone, you start him. And from an efficiency standpoint, he should be all right. Not something you can say every week about him. And then Will Fuller, if he plays, if he doesn't, Bruce Ellington, but speed beats the Patriots. Deshaun Jackson, Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones, Deontay Thompson, they all had good weeks against the Patriots defense. So Will Fuller, I actually don't hate this week, despite not liking him very much overall.
So make sure to check in YouTube Lives 10:30 a.m. on Sunday to make sure to see if he is playing or not before you set your lineups.
Yep. As far as the Texans defense, it's Tom Brady, so I'd be kind of mad on that. They're in stream territory for me this week. Gammy Fairbairn, though, if you need a streaming kicker, should be a fine start, just given the offensive prowess of this game. And then on to the Patriots. You're sitting all running backs in this one. Houston allowed only 6 rushing touchdowns. They only allowed 12 guys over 50 yards on a minimum of 10 attempts last season. Only 8 at over 4 yards a carry. It's just going to be too much of a mixed bag against a defense with a good front 7.
Yeah, they have a good front 7, and people could just throw on them at will. So they didn't bother running.
No, they didn't. So there's no reason to. Houston also only allowed 2 backs over 30 yards receiving, so I just don't want anything to do with this backfield this week if I can help it. You're obviously starting Tom Brady against the secondary. They did bring in Aaron Colvin, which was an improvement. Watt and Merciless are back, but it's Tom Brady. It's going to be a high-scoring game. So the question then becomes, who's he throwing to, because they cut everybody. Chris Hogan and Cordero Patterson are the 2 guys that I like this week. Cordero Patterson being the interesting one. But Houston allowed 7 100-yard receivers last season. Hogan went for 68 and 2 against them, and they did struggle with speed, but Hogan and Patterson are both fast. So
I don't think Dorsett's a slouch either, but he's
not, but
he's more of the slot guy.
Yeah, he's kind of meh for me. And then just to back that up, guys that had over 75 yards against Houston: Paul Richardson, Marquise Goodwin, Tyler Lockett, and Brandon Cooks. Robert Woods, T.Y. Hilton, Keelan Cole. So average to above average speed. And then Tyreek Hill also had a solid game. And Rob Gronkowski, Houston allowed 8 tight ends to go over 50 yards. They gave up 9 touchdowns to the tight ends. Gronk's going to be targeted, so he's going to feast. And then again, Vinatieri, you're starting and stay away from the defense.
Gostkowski.
What year am I in? Holy crap. Well, you're also starting Vinatieri in the Colts game.
Yep.
Yes, but
So I'm just reinforcing that.
Yep.
But you're
also
you're,
Steph Gostkowski.
you're starting Gostkowski.
And not the defense.
Yeah. Wow. Welcome to 2002, guys.
All right, let's move on to Titans at the Dolphins. Titans are favored a 1.5 on the road in this one. It's an over-under of 45. So starting off with the Titans, Dolphins had a terrible defense last year. They had 2 games against Trevor Siemian and Matt Castle where they kind of bumped up their quarterback efficiency ratings, but other than that, they were given 18.73 points per game, which would have been 4th worst in the NFL. They had some really easy matchups overall, so I like Mariota as an excellent low QB1, high QB2 this week. Dolphins were also terrible against running backs last year, and they don't have Ndamukong Suh anymore. They allowed 15 running backs to score 10-plus in the half-point PPR, including 3 times when 2 backs did it in the same game. So this is one of the few weeks where I'm like, you have Lewis or Henry, start either one. Doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Start both if you have both.
If you have both,
fuck it.
Go for it. So yeah, stamp of approval on both those. Wide receivers usually did pretty well against the Dolphins. 9 of the 16 they played went for 10+. So Davis is an interesting start here. I have him pegged as a high wide receiver 3 this week. I'm not sure quite how much of a development we're going to see out of him. We didn't see a ton in preseason, but wide receiver 1 seemed to match up against the Dolphins pretty well. On the flip side, wide receiver 2s and 3s were very, very poor against the Dolphins, so I want nothing to do with Taylor and Matthews this week. Dolphins were 2nd worst against tight ends, so Delaney Walker is strictly in the love category. He would probably be my tight end 2 if it wasn't for some concerns about his toes.
Foot fetish.
I told you so.
There it is.
Rex Ryan approves.
Jesus.
Titans defense and Suckup are both okay streamers. If
You need somebody to pick up a foot.
if you're lacking some better options, I don't hate Titans defense and Ryan Suckup. Suckup was actually a top 10 kicker last year, and then the Titans defense was kind of middle of the road, and the Dolphins should not be world beaters.
Not even close.
On to the Dolphins side, Titans were middle of the road against quarterbacks. They gave up over 17 points 8 times. League average was 14.9 points a game, to give you some reference on that. So it's not a bad game to target Tannehill as a streamer if you're desperate. I like him as a QB2 this week in Superflex 2 quarterback formats. And then outside of 2 games last year, the Titans were actually really good against the run. So they ran into Gurley on one of his crazy weeks, and then they ran into one other one where they gave up 23 points. But other than that, they were only everything else was 16 points or lower. And they only gave up 9 total touchdowns to running backs, with 5 of those being through the air. So they are missing linebackers Rashawn Evans and Harold Landry, so this is going to be a weaker than normal front 7. So I like but don't love Drake this week. He should be viewed as a mid to low running back too. I'm not touching any other backs, so don't even think about starting Frank Gore or anything like that.
Unless you have to.
We're
looking at you.
18 wide receivers scored double-digit fantasy points against the Titans. They were bottom 12 overall against wide receivers. Stills is a mid to high wide receiver 3 for you this week. They also got burned out of the slot multiple times. Doug Bolden, Cooper Kupp, Jeremy Maclin, Jarvis Landry, Marquise Lee all went for 10+, running primarily out of the slot. So I don't actually hate Danny Amendola this week as a wide receiver 4-ish type play.
No, it's not bad. He'll be used.
Titans were basically league average against tight ends, and Gesicki's playing in his first game as a rookie. Sit him. And Dolphins defense and Jason Sanders, until we actually see them do something interesting or productive, I'm passing on both.
Yes.
Anything else?
No.
Nope.
All right, well, let's talk about the game that might get rained out. This is Steelers at the Browns. They're going to get 5.
Oh, we're actually doing some weather stuff first.
They're going 5 to 7 inches of rain in the 24 hours leading up to the game. So what we're getting right now.
It's a water polo match.
Yep.
My money's on Njoku.
My money's
Water
on.
polo is so cruel to the horses.
Yikes.
Over under a 44, 3.5 line for the Steelers in this one. If the game happens in the sloppy weather, what do you see happening?
Well, this kind of puts a damper.
Lots of running.
Lots of running. So my notes on Big Ben would be to start Big Ben this week because he's done really well without Le'Veon Bell. In 2015, when Bell missed those 12 games due to injury and suspension, Big Ben averaged 27 completions, 348 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. 8 300-yard passing games, 2 400-yard passing games. One of those 300-yard passing games was at 399. A lot of volume there. Weather, obviously pay attention to that. Tune into us Sunday morning for all your weather updates on the live stream before kickoff happens. As for the running backs here, the Browns are not a pushover on defense. They're actually pretty decent against the run last year. They gave up the second fewest yards per carry at 3.4 and only allowed 97 yards per game. And this is a team that was always behind. So the defense, they always saw a lot of, of that rushing offense from the other team. So James Conner, if you're a Bell owner, you're obviously going to pick him up and potentially play him. I wouldn't be super high on him. Bad field conditions. Even though there should be a lot of running in this game, if that's the case, I still don't like Conner as much. To me, it's nothing more than just a flex option.
So you did write that they're the worst against pass catching. They're worse against pass catching backs. Conner was the pass catching back in preseason, so I think he will be used that way.
And if so, but
so I've got him as a low 2 myself.
Yeah, I don't see anybody else that's going to come in and be strictly the pass catching back.
Looking at you, everyone on Reddit is telling people to pick up
I'm
Jalen
not saying
Samuels.
that. I'm not saying.
Wait, there's still Jalen Samuels truthers?
So on Yahoo, he is listed as a tight end. So they're all like, pick up Jalen Samuels and start him as in the tight end slot.
No, because I don't think he gets enough work.
I don't think so
Still.
either.
Yeah, we'll just see what Connor's role is going to be like in this case. Bad weather, even if he does get used a lot, I would just say tamper a little bit expectations. As for the receivers, you're obviously going to start Antonio Brown and Juju in this game, and I wouldn't look anywhere else. I made notes on Washington, but due to bad weather, I wouldn't even come close to starting them. As for Jesse James and the tight ends, with Vance McDonald out, and Jesse James being the lone tight end, last season this happened, I believe, 6 times. He averaged 4 targets, 4.6 targets, 2.8 receptions, 20 yards, and he scored once in those 6 games. Barely good for a top 24 finish in any given week, and he actually only had 1 tight end 1 finish during that span. Bell is out, so there is a slight bump to that, and depending on the weather, obviously there could be a slight bump to that. Also, Jesse James had his best game of the year against Cleveland in Week 1 when he went 8 targets, 6 receptions, 41 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I don't trust the Steelers' defense this week, though. With the bad weather conditions, they could be a potential streamer play this week if you're in need of one. And Tyrod is about as safe with the football as you can get those. So I don't like them that much this week. I would avoid the kicking game.
Yeah,
as well.
I have Boswell in a few places, and I'm going to be scrambling for a replacement.
That's right. Just drop him. It's a kicker. As for the Browns, Tyrod was my start of the week. Again, I am just finding out about the weather news. A lot of my notes here weren't from that. But if things aren't as bad as it looks, Pittsburgh's defense, as I noted in our Wednesday's episode, just wasn't the same after the last year. From week 11 on, when the injury happened, Pittsburgh gave up 16.8 points to the QB position, which would have been 9th worst in the league last season. And this game could turn into a shootout if that's the case. So there could be some opportunity there, but again, with weather, just look elsewhere potentially. I still trust Duke Johnson as the main running back here, just because of his floor and that pass catching opportunity. But Hyde did separate himself from Nick Chubb as a lead back, and he could get some opportunity in the red zone. Sloppy plays, sloppy special teams because of the weather could give Hyde an opportunity to score a couple touchdowns in the red zone. Landry is the only receiver I'll trust this week. He gained that trust, and he's built that chemistry with Tyrod. In the week 3 preseason game, Landry had 10 targets before the first team offense went off the field. Do not start Josh Gordon. All signs point, yes, he'll play. He's on the snap count. There's no way I can see him getting 10 targets or anything close to that than to be.
His snap count's going to be limited. It's going to be terrible weather. Don't bother.
Yeah. Pittsburgh was good against tight ends last season. They only gave up 5.19 points to the game, or to the tight end position, 7th fewest in the league. But Njoku's the beast. You got to see that in the preseason. You saw a little bit last year. He could have an opportunity to score on some big plays, plus in the red zone. So I like Njoku this week.
All right. Hopper, finish us up with the noon games. We got Jaguars at the Giants. Jags favored by 3, over under 43.5.
All right, starting with my personal favorite, the Jags. Let's start off with Jesus himself, Blake Bortles. Giants allowed 5 passers over 300 yards. They did nothing of note to that defense. They gave it multiple touchdowns 10 times. Bortles went for multiple touchdowns in 4 of his last 5 games. And in those 4 games, Keelan Cole was the wide receiver 1. So I actually like Blake Bortles if you need a streamer this week. If you drafted Wentz and missed out and are looking for a start, I think he's my 12. Just because he may not have a ton of yardage, but I think the Giants added enough offensive firepower to where they can't rely fully on the one run game, and the Giants tend to give up touchdowns.
And as I mentioned in Wednesday's episode, they are missing Olivier Verner.
They are missing Olivier Vernon as well. Leonard Fournette will be fine this week. He should be a running back 1. Pre-injury, he was averaging 4.5 yards a carry. Post-injury, that dropped to 3.21. He evaded a tackle and a half a game post-injury, or tackle and a half a game less after he hurt his ankle. Giants give up 98 yards or more to Gordon, Elliott, Lynch, P. Ryan, Hyde, which are all bigger between the tackles types of backs. So Leonard Fournette is actually a very high-end play for me this week. Keelan Cole is a wide receiver 1 over his last 4 weeks, excluding week 17, where they didn't really play anybody. He averaged 4.75 receptions, 110 yards, 0.75 touchdowns. That was against Seattle, Houston, and San Francisco and Indianapolis, so both levels of competition. Jenkins will be a hard draw, but Keelan Cole, Blake Bortles, they're on the same page. But the guy I'm really interested in from the wide receiver core this week, D.D. Westbrook. Of the 10 wide receivers with over 70 yards against the Giants, 5 were either slot guys or guys with above average speed, and Westbrook has both. That's Crowder, Fitzgerald, Cordero Patterson, Marquise Goodwin, Emmanuel Sanders, Adam Humphries. So it's kind of the perfect storm for D.D. Westbrook to perform this week against this Giants defense. And Eli Apple's a freaking turnstile. All that. So there's that. And then ASJ was one of my starts of the week. 9 tight ends were over 50 yards against the Giants. They also allowed 12 receiving touchdowns to the tight end position. So just Jaguars offense. You're going to be okay with it, most of them this week.
Yeah. Outside of Fournette, just good, but not amazing for most of them, probably.
Yeah, outside of Fournette, it's good, not amazing. But like I said, Bortles is streamable. If you're desperate for a wide receiver play, Keelan Cole or D.D. Westbrook, you could do worse.
Okay.
And then I like ASJ for streaming the tight end position.
And then Jags defense, you're obviously starting.
Oh, yeah, you're obviously starting the Jags defense, and Lambeau is not a bad go either.
All right.
All right, and on to the Giants. Eli Manning is an absolute sit here. Jacksonville allowed 1 300-yard passer all season. They only allowed 2 250-yard passers as well, so 3 in total over 250. And they added weapons to this defense. They added pass rush. They added another safety. They did lose Aaron Colvin, but outside corners are still the same guys. There's still plenty of talent here. This pass rush is going to feast, especially on the leaky right side of that line with the gaping hole that is Eric Flowers. And only 4 quarterbacks passed for multiple touchdowns on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Only one of them went for 3. That was Roethlisberger. 12 quarterbacks were also intercepted by Jacksonville in 2017, and 5 of them multiple times, which Eli Manning is
prone to do.
Yeah. So love the Jacksonville defense this week. That was going to be my pump up for them. Saquon Barkley, Jacksonville only allowed 2 rushers over 75 yards after they acquired Marcel Darius. They did, however, consistently allow over 4 yards per attempt most of last season. They struggled against agile backs. You had 6 backs over 40 yards receiving after this trade. Those backs also went for 4 touchdowns. So Saquon Barkley's fine this week. He should be a kind of a back end running back 1, I think. Mm-hmm. As for Odell Beckham and Sterling Shepard, though, Jacksonville only allowed 1 wide receiver over 100 yards. That was Antonio Brown. I'm really stuck in the 2000s right now. Antonio Brown on 19 targets to go over 100 yards. The only wide receiver with more than 10 targets put up more than 75 yards. So that being said, I think Beckham's fine because they'll have that type of volume. A little bit more tepid on Shepard, but it's not the worst case scenario because Aaron Colvin is no longer there.
Yep, so he'll get to play draw whoever's in the slot.
He was also locked down. So Sterling Shepard could be sneaky good this week, but I'm not going to plant my flag on it. Mm-hmm. If that. So, fair enough. Yeah. And only 4 guys that weren't wide receiver 1s were over 50 yards as well. And those two were just kind of down weeks for the defense across the board. And then Evan Ingram, Jacksonville only had 3 tight ends over 50 yards. Only one of them had a touchdown. It was Ricky Seals-Jones, so I'm staying away from Ingram.
Fucking NASCAR
himself.
Yep. Giants defense, Bortles is prone to picks, so but they're kind of on the lower tier of streaming options for me this week. And then Aldrich Rosas I would avoid.
Yeah. All right. I agree with most of that. Let's go ahead and hit a beer review.
All right. What don't you agree with? I'm just curious. Is this another thing where you're just ignoring me until the hit drops?
I also try not to talk over the beautiful drops you've created. So,
Well, I asked you before I hit the drop.
yeah,
You
he did.
ignored
I
me.
was thinking for a moment, then you hit the drop. So.
Oh, I didn't know that you were thinking. You said I agreed with most of it, so I assumed there was something that you had queued up.
Something like,
I would
a robotic response.
Just because the way he runs out of the slot, I would be a little higher in Ingram than you. That'd be mostly it.
Oh, okay.
So for the beer review, what do you guys think of Mango Mosaic by Breckenridge Brewing Company?
Well, I'm already on 2, and there's only been 2 beers in probably the last 8 months I've had 2 of during the show, and it's not because we're running excessively long. I think it's a really good combination. I think pairing the mango with the Mosaic hops is a perfect complement of citrus. The mango flavor definitely comes out, and it doesn't fade too much. I feel like the Mosaic hops actually carry it through to kind of a mild hoppy finish. It's very, very good, and I'm not typically the biggest fan of mango, but I like this a lot.
I am not a fan of mango. It's a drinkable beer, and if you like the taste of mango, even if you kind of don't like the taste of mango, you'll like it.
This is like me with lime.
Yeah, it's done well if you enjoy this style. The Mosaic hops was what makes it bearable for me for that part. But it's, like I said, they did what they said they were going to do. So
That's like
enough beer.
that's like a hopper drinking lime beer.
it is.
review.
It is.
Yeah, definitely as advertised. Goes down ridiculously smoothly.
Yeah.
I agree. The hops for both the mango and the Mosaic pair fantastically. So well done. And they're a decently large brewery, so they're putting us out on a pretty decent production scale. But yeah, that's fantastic to do that type of beer with that type of blend with a little bit of complexity to it, but it just basically smooth all the way through. Nothing too crazy about it.
Yeah.
So, but it's the opposite of the sour I drank last night, where it was nothing.
That was
fucking-
insane. That was fucking nuts, man.
Yeah. For this, they said mango, and you're definitely getting mango.
Yep, it's mango right into Mosaic. It's as advertised.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Breckenridge. Let's go ahead and jump into the 3:00 games. I'm kicking us off with
Finish strong. 5 left.
Chiefs at the Chargers. Chargers favored by 3.5. Over under 48. Starting off with the Chiefs, Mahomes is running into a defense that has 15 straight games of less than 20 fantasy points for opposing quarterbacks. So basically, there is going to be a ceiling on Mahomes this week. They were below average on 9 of those 15, including Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, and Derek Carr finishing under 14.9 fantasy points. This is likely going to be a bad game for Mahomes. He should not be started if you have any sort of better option available. If you can grab Rivers, if you can grab Dalton, Bortles, any guys like that, I would much rather start.
There's a
them this
lot
week.
of better options, even with
Yes.
Joey Bosa out. I don't like this matchup for him.
Joey Bosa out does help. It makes me slightly more optimistic,
slightly.
but
The
not a
Chargers
ton.
are just really talented on defense with a lot of depth, though.
They're really talented in the secondary. On the flip side, they do get beaten on the ground. So
Yeah,
they were slightly below league average there, and Hunt kills them. He had 2 games against him last year, 24.8 fantasy points and 36.1 fantasy points last season in his 2 games against the Chargers. He's a solid RB1. Start and don't even worry about it. Chargers were top 6 against wide receivers in 2017. Not a single wide receiver broke 20 against them. Hill should still be a safe wide receiver too. His 2 games he put up was 17.5 and 17.3 fantasy points. I'm fine starting Hill. Watkins should be avoided at all costs. Do not start Sammy Watkins this week.
I agree.
I'm hoping to see some flashes from Watkins. I do not feel safe starting him.
It's not going to be consistent enough.
Nope.
Kelsey finished with a combined 8.2 fantasy points in his 2 games last year against the Chargers. They were 6th best against tight ends in 2017. He probably needs a touchdown to finish as a tight end 1. I don't think he can sit him, but lower those expectations.
Yeah.
Don't expect a great Kelsey.
You don't want to get cute week 1.
Chiefs defense is going to be awful, so like the Colts, just delete them off your list. Butker's an okay streaming option because there's probably going to be a lot of scoring in this game.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Chargers. Chiefs were 9th worst against quarterback last year, and they've lost multiple pieces on the defense, so I think they're probably going to be worse. To throw a little caution to the Rivers train, though, he was terrible against the Chiefs last year. He had 6.5 and 10.1 fantasy points in their 2 matchups on a bottom 10 pass defense. I'm not sure why, but Reed seems to have his number.
I'm sure Marcus Peters helped with that too.
Marcus Peters probably did help. On the positive side, even Cutler and Paxton Lynch managed to break 15 last year, so I do think Rivers should have a decent game. I don't know why he was so bad last year, but I'm expecting better. So feel free to comfortably start him. He's my number 6 quarterback. Chiefs were excellent against the run. They were 7th best in the league. They did lose some pieces, and Gordon did seem to have their number as well. 13.9 fantasy points and 25.9 fantasy points. I like him as a safe running back 1, but with how good the Chiefs defense has been against the run and how bad they're probably going to be against the pass, I don't want to start Eckler this week, even as a desperation type flex play. I'm going to ignore it, and I want to see how this offense shakes out and see how much volume Eckler gets before I consider starting him.
Fair enough.
Chiefs were 2nd worst against receivers in 2017, but they have lost multiple defensive backs. I am putting all my chips in on Keenan Allen this week. He was 7.9 and 8.6 fantasy points last year, but I expected to jump significantly. He should finish as a top 5 wide receiver this week, and I'm predicting a touchdown. Tyrell and Mike Williams could be an emergency dart throw. I view them both as wide receiver 4s in a plus matchup. Chiefs were excellent against tight ends, and Gates just came off the street. Do not start Antonio Gates. Let him get into game shape before you even consider it. Lastly, Chargers defense, I view them as a low-end defense without Bosa in. Losing that sack upside kind of kills it for me. So I view them as kind of about a defense 10 or 12. If you have them, you probably have to start them because you can't risk dropping them for when Bosa comes back. But you're not feeling great about it. And then I'm not trusting a Chargers kicker until they prove themselves, so I'm passing on Sturgis.
Yeah. It's like the Bears situation.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Cowboys at the Panthers is up next. Panthers favored by 3 in this one, 42.5 over-under. Dan?
Come on, Meteorite.
Come on, Meteorite, yes.
I must have forgot to copy-paste his notes in there. Anyways, starting with the Cowboys this week, I really hate Dak Prescott this week. O-line is banged up. Panthers have a strong front 7, and everyone's back and healthy. Dak also showed to us last year what he is when this O-line is banged up and missing some of their top pieces.
Shit.
Plus, no receiving core at all. And they're probably going to run through Zeke and try to run this clock out and play as quick a pace as they possibly can. Expect a low amount of plays in total for the Cowboys offense this week. As for Zeke, he's obviously a must start, but you should temper your expectations, at least for his ceiling wise, with this banged up O-line. You're seeing a little bit more busted plays in the backfield, maybe a little bit less, or more busted plays in the backfield potentially, and a little bit less big play potential. As for the receivers, it does look like Michael Gallup and Cole Beasley has locked up the wide receiver 1 and 2 job. You just don't know in what order. And with this offense being so run heavy, I don't see Dak being able to support barely one receiver comfortably, guessing which that receiver is. You don't play their tight end defense or kicker because low scoring game.
So to summarize, Zeke or Dak in 2 quarterback leagues.
Yep. Panthers. You drafted Cam to be your starter. You're obviously going to be playing Cam. He has probably the best floor for any quarterback in fantasy football given his rushing upside. You just don't know what type of Cam you're going to get from the passing game, so you have to kind of play. He's that boom busty, as Hopper has always pointed out too. But he does get a better receiving core, and Greg Olsen is back, so there's a little more upside of that. CMC is the bell cow in this offense until proven otherwise. He dominated the first team snaps over any other running back on this offense during the preseason. He's a high-end RB2 with high-end RB1 upside. Though the Cowboys were good against running backs last year, they only gave up 16.29 points per game to the position. They were horrible against pass-catching backs, giving up the 4th most receptions at 97 and third most yards at 800. Yeah, CMC. Sorry.
Yeah, and for the moment, as of this recording, Sean Lee is healthy, so that does not help CMC.
No, not at all. Although
for the moment,
he could get up off the couch and hurt himself.
I said for the moment, as of this recording.
That is true. Either way, Cowboys got roasted through the air, giving up 21.2 points per game to the wide receiver position, which was 10th most, and they also gave up a lot of red zone targets, and 3rd most goal-to-goal targets to receivers. So Funches is an upside flex play this week. Probably draft him as a wide receiver plus slash flex play. He has a lot of touchdown potential in this offense. DJ Moore is very talented, probably is more talented than Funches. He just hasn't solidified that yet. He is still only 4th in the depth chart. I still like Funches this week. No other receiver, though. And as for the Panthers defense, may not be great, but it just with the game speed and the potential for sacks with this banged up offensive line, they're not the worst play this week. And you're going to start Graham Cano.
Yep.
This offense can score.
And I agree with you completely. I actually really like Funches this week.
So I'm glad you agree with me.
Hopper, Redskins at the Cardinals. Cardinals favored by 1 at home. 44-point over-under on this one. What do you see this one playing out as?
All right. Starting with Alex Smith. He's an okay streamer this week. I don't like him as much as Bortles, but he's in kind of that same type of range. Arizona only allowed 4 passers over 250 yards. However, 9 of them went for multiple touchdowns. They also allowed Bortles to rush for 62 yards and 2 touchdowns against them. Alex Smith is kind of the same type of rusher, which is why I notate that. At running back, I like Thompson more than I like Peterson, I think. And it's really going to be a volume play, so I'm really kind of meh on Peterson, like RB3. But every 50-plus yard back allowed by Arizona was a bigger type of back. That's the good news. It was Gurley, Zeke, Hyde, and Foreman. It is a revenge game. That's also the good news.
How much of a revenge game is it when you played half a season?
Game,
I don't know. But the bad news is against those backs, they also... wow. I just had a stroke on air.
Sounds like me.
Call 911.
Right. Only 4 backs average 4+ yards per carry against them, though, so that's kind of why I'm down on Peterson. Chris Thompson, 11 backs had 4 more receptions. 7 of them went for 50 or more yards, and 3 of them scored a touchdown. So Thompson's actually a pretty decent flex play this week in any type of PPR format. Jamison Crowder was 5 for 51 against Arizona last season. They had 18 guys over 50 yards. So again, wide receiver 3 type of play. That includes Crowder, Cooper Kupp twice, Bruce Ellington, Bryce Butler, Golden Tate, Doug Baldwin, Adam Humphries. So a lot of slot guys doing that. I don't know that Crowder runs out of the slot. He can move all over the field, but he did perform against them last year. So
with Doxson and Richardson, he should run out of the slot.
He should.
Yeah.
And then as far as Jordan Reed goes, only 4 tight ends went for 50 or more yards. That was Doyle, Braid, Ertz, and Rhett Ellison somehow. Only 2 of those had touchdowns. Jimmy Graham was the only other tight end to kind of perform. So a little down on Jordan Reed this week. It's not a good matchup.
Though if you drafted Jordan Reed, you probably don't have a choice.
Well,
maybe.
You could have Nick Vanette.
You should have probably backed up Jordan Reed.
I did.
In general.
We'll talk about Nick Vanette in a little bit. I'm not quite on your train.
I'm not on that train this week. No, I'm starting Jordan Reed. On to Arizona. Sam Bradford, Alex Smith, ironically enough, went for 293 and 1 against Washington last year. Rivers, Breeze, Keenum also put up strong games, so defense really has no teeth to it at this point, especially that secondary. So Bradford's also an okay stream. 7 multi-touchdown games given up to the same kind of set of quarterbacks for Washington, and Sam Bradford's gone for 3 touchdowns in each of his last 3 starts and over 250 yards in 5 of his last 6. So you got some good streams this week. Bortles, Smith, Stafford, just things to keep an eye on there. You're obviously starting David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald. I wouldn't worry about him at all. Wide receivers, a good route running ability on this secondary. 8 guys over 75 yards last year, including Stephon Diggs, Demaryius Thomas, Doug Baldwin, Keenan Allen, Adam Thielen.
I'm hearing a lot of slot there.
Yeah. Decent amount of slot, but also just good route runners. Garcon and Thomas also put up good numbers. And Michael Thomas also put up good numbers against them. So it's not just slot. They just get beat by Chris technique. It's not a team that gets beat by deep guys, but also slot, and Fitz will be in the slot some.
Yeah. I'm very high on Fitz this week as my wide receiver 7.
As far as Chad Williams, Christian Kirk, J.J. Nelson go, outside of wide receiver 1s, nothing really jumped off the page at me. Norman does stay stacked to one side, so they'll be able to work some guys open, but I'm really just steering away from anybody that's not named Fitzgerald here.
Agreed.
And then for Ricky Seals-Jones, we know Bradford will use his tight ends. Washington gave up over 50 yards of tight ends in just over half of its games. They also gave up a touchdown in over half of its games. So Ricky Seals-Jones, solid stream play this week.
Okay.
That's all I got.
All right. I just lost where I was. Sorry.
You're in studio.
Seahawks.
You're with us.
Speaking of Nick Vanette, Seahawks at the Broncos up next. Broncos favored by 3 at home in Denver, 42.5 point over-under. Starting off with the Seahawks. This is a bad but not impossible matchup for Wilson. If you have a situation where you drafted like Wilson Rivers, Wilson Stafford, some situation like that, you may be sitting him this week. But for the most part, if you drafted Wilson, you're probably starting him, and you're just going to have to deal with the lumps in a bad matchup. He's a low in QB1 for me. Broncos were top 10 against quarterbacks. They look to be better in 2018, especially if their offense can stay on schedule. That was the main thing that killed their defense last year. It should have been much better than it was. So expect a tough game from Wilson, but he should get a decent floor with his rushing ability. Broncos were still a top 5 run defense though last year. Only 2 players broke 100 yards from scrimmage. It was Drake and Darkwa for some reason.
Double D's.
Carson will need a touchdown. I'd rather not start him. You took him late enough, you probably have better options, but if you're desperate, he could be a low-end RB3 in a pinch. I think he is going to get the majority of the work. I do not fear Penny or Davis at all. Broncos were 3rd against wide receivers last year. Only 14 players managed to score double-digit points. Baldwin is a real tepid wide receiver 2 type play. You probably can't bench him, but don't have real high expectations. If it's possible, and you've got a situation where maybe Hogan was your wide receiver 4 and you can jump him over Baldwin, might be a situation where you can bench Baldwin. Every other receiver, Lockett, Marshall, not interested in this matchup. It's a real tough one for them. They're not going to drive the type of matchups you're looking for. Overall, benching both without hesitation. On the upside, Broncos were 3rd worst in the league last year against tight ends. Ed Dixon is not playing in this game. They had 6 games with 10-plus points, 2 20-plus point games. If you're real desperate for a tight end fit, take a look at Nick Vanette.
Yes!
There it is.
And I am desperate.
Because I don't know who the hell else Wilson is going to throw to. Do not ever consider the Seahawks defense in this game. Wagner is not going to play. They basically have nobody but Earl Thomas.
Earl Thomas might not even play. Is he playing?
He reported back.
He reported back.
I would
He's going to play.
Assume so?
He's familiar enough with that defense.
It is in Denver, so I would possibly consider Janikowski as a streamer.
Oh, yeah. I like Seabass.
All right, on to the Broncos.
Seattle was
6th best against quarterbacks last year, but I'm expecting that to flip real hard in the opposite direction.
Yep. You and me both.
Yep.
I personally would not start Keenum in the opening game because the biggest issue, this offense really struggled to kind of keep its shit together last year. So I kind of want to see it before I believe it, or believe it before I see it, whichever way you want to theoryism that.
Let's believe it before I see it.
I'll see it.
I would maybe sneak him in as a QB2 in a 2 quarterback type situation. So it should be an okay matchup, but I'm not sure I trust the offense quite yet.
I do.
On the flip side, though, their defense got worse. Seahawks defense got worse last year's season went on. They started off as a top 5-6 defense, dropped down into about close to middle of the pack, and they finished out at 11th. They got no Wagner. They've got no Cam Chancellor. I think Freeman is a must start right now that he's been named the starter, and I actually don't hate Booker as a desperation type play this week.
Well, they believe in him for some reason, so
yeah, he's going to get pass catches.
He's getting
any sort of PPR
he's
type play. He's going to have volume. He's Buck Allen light for me this week. So if you're that type of desperate, consider Booker.
Point.
Slot receivers killed the Seahawks last year. Nelson Aguilar, Rashard Matthews, D.D. Westbrook, Larry Fitzgerald, and Mohamed Sanu all went for big games against them last year, running out of the slot. Thomas is still a solid start as a kind of mid to low end wide receiver too, but I think Sanders is a guy that should be started over people that were drafted over him. It's a great matchup, and he's going to get fed. Keenum was feeding him targets in the preseason. I think he's going to get 10 plus in this game.
Hence why Sanders
easily
is ranked higher for me than Thomas.
I do not disagree with that. Seahawks were good against tight ends last year, but I'm not overly trusting of Jake Button his first career start. I'm recommending you look elsewhere for your tight end start this week. And lastly, I don't want to start the Broncos defense because I still have a few question marks about how this is all going to mesh together with the addition of Nick Chubb. Wilson is still very dangerous, but you're probably in a situation where if you have the Broncos, you probably can't churn them off for another defense. You'd rather hold them for their plus matchups that come over the next couple weeks. So you're probably just going to start them. And then McManus is in Denver, so you probably are going to be okay starting him if you're desperate for a stream.
Yep.
Bears of the Packers. Hopper, you got this one.
And this is it. This is the last one, right?
That's last. This is a Sunday night game. We got 2 Monday games.
Oh, shit. All right. Bears versus Packers. For the Bears, you're going to start Robinson, Miller, DST, sitting Trubisky, Cohen, Burton. So starting with Trubisky. Look, this is an interesting matchup. You've got the Packers who have a mostly rookie secondary. You got the Bears who have a brand new offense. So, but last year, you got to go off what you know. So last year, Packers have I already just said the Packers have a very rookie secondary, but mixed results with having to pass more than 30 times last season for Trubisky. Updated receiving corps, I think, is going to help, but there's just a lot of questions there. He was 297-1 in his only start against Green Bay, which is good. He rose to the occasion in that, but I'm steering away until we know more what this looks like. So for Jordan Howard, Green Bay had 13 games over 50 yards rushing to one back. Howard had two of those games, so 13 backs, single back over 50-yard rushing, not a team. Green Bay allowed touchdowns in 5 of those as well. So Jordan Howard should be a fine RB2 play. Tariq Cohen, McKinnon, Kamara, McCaffrey, Bell all got it done in the passing game. They had 6 guys over 40 receiving yards. But they did struggle to score touchdowns against this team. But Cohen's a unique player.
Yeah, I'm not
recommending start him. But if you feel like starting him as an upside play, I'm not going to say don't either. I'm kind of tepid on him.
He's kind of in that borderline RB3 fringe for me this week.
Yeah.
I really want to see how they use him in this offense.
I do too. As for the wide receivers, Robinson, Miller, White, Gabriel, Green Bay allowed 24 receivers to go over 50 yards. They allowed 7 100-yard games and 13 over 75 yards. They had 15 touchdowns given up. There's no real pattern to what performed either. Possession guys, speed guys, slot guys, they just kind of all destroyed them. So I figure that Robinson and Miller are probably going to be the 2 biggest pass catching targets for wide receivers. So if you need to start Miller as a fringe, I'm okay with that. You may want to wait to see how he's used, but Robinson's a definite go.
I'm personally leaning the more cautious side myself. I would not start Miller.
Yeah. And then Trey Burton, Green Bay allowed 2 50-yard tight ends all season. That was to Witten and Olsen. Both required over 10 targets. And they only allowed 3 touchdowns to tight ends last season. So that could be a situation where wide receivers were torturing them and you didn't need the tight end. But I'm probably steering away from Burton also, just given those numbers.
I'm starting him in one place that I have to. Beyond that, I've benched him.
As for the Packers, you're starting Rodgers, obviously. Jamal Williams and Ty Montgomery. The Bears did allow 11 rushers over 50 yards, including Jamal Williams, but that was at 3.3 yards a carry. I'd expect the Packers are going to need to throw more this time around than they did last time as well, so I don't expect a lot out of Jamal Williams in this game. Same thing with Ty Montgomery. They had 4 backs over 40 receiving yards against them, but none of them scored touchdowns, so I'm trying to avoid the Packers' backfield against the Bears' defense if I can. Mm-hmm. For Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb, the Bears only allowed 1 100-yard wide receiver. That was Antonio Brown. I got it right that time. They did, however, allow 19 over 50 yards, 9 over 75, including 75 and 2 touchdowns to Nelson with Rodgers last year. So Adams is a fine start. Cobb, a little bit more tepid on that one. Fuller and Nakamura are both healthy, so both corners in this offense are good. Or in this defense are good.
Who's their slot corner?
It is Bryce Callahan, who's also a PFF graded average to above average cornerback. Okay. So, and then Jimmy Graham, the Bears allowed 4 tight ends over 40 yards, 3 scored touchdowns last season. So there are only 4 total touchdowns allowed to the tight end position. So if you have to start him, go for it. I'm not going to say don't. He should be back in tight end 1.
It's the tight end position. You probably don't have a choice.
Yeah, you probably don't. As for defenses and kickers in this one, I'm okay if you have to start either kicker. I'm not going to recommend going out and grabbing either kicker because who the hell knows how this game's going to go.
It's going to be playing in Lambeau and it's probably going to be rainy.
Yep. And as far as the defenses goes, I like the Bears more than the Packers. They're in kind of back end 1 streaming territory for me.
All right. Second to last game, penultimate game here. We got Jets at the Lions. Lions 6.5 favorites, over under 45. Dan, kick us off.
Let's go really quick. Jets, don't start anybody. Don't start Darnold. Don't start Crowell. Don't start Powell. With Crowell healthy, it's hard to know what his true touching order is going to be. With here, though the Lions did struggle against running backs last season, they gave up the 6th most points to the position at 20. They also gave up the 6th most receptions running back as well, so lean Powell there. Can't trust any receivers in this offense. You can't trust any tight ends in this offense because it's worse than the receiving core. You're not going to play their defense or kicker because it's not going to go anywhere.
I'll make a quick aside. I would consider Enunwa as a desperation play because you know
Yes.
he's not going to get Darius Slay. That's
True.
the only one I would consider.
Yeah, I actually I almost thought about that. Ugh. As for the Lions, though, a little more plays this week. Stafford's a great play this week, though you may see less attempts. The Lions try to go more balanced with run and pass. The Jets are bad defensively. They gave up the 5th most points to quarterbacks last season at 17.5. Though this game could get out of hand quickly, and Stafford could be benched sometime in the 4th quarter because they're up by so many points. So I tamper his upside there just a little bit. As for the running back trio, it's very hard to predict. I don't like Theo in this game, but he's probably the most trusted at what you are probably going to get from him. But I expect game script to be not in his favor as the Jets have no offense whatsoever. Blunt's probably the most likely to score a touchdown this week, so I would lean, if you have to play a Lions running back this week, I would lean Blunt. But again, we don't know what the touch count's going to be like for both Blunt and Johnson, as Johnson looked like the better backs out of everybody in this backfield in preseason. As for the receivers, Tate and Jones are must-starts this week. The Jets gave up the 13th most points to receivers per game last season with 21. Galladay is even a mid-level flex play, as there's been rumors saying that he could be running as a second receiver and wide receiver to Setch, which could be more this week, just given the matchup against the Jets. As for the tight ends, it's hard to trust Wilson in week 1. He's not drafted. I don't see why you go and pick him up. And Stafford traditionally just hasn't used his tight ends as that often in his career. As for the defense and Prater, you're going to start this defense against the Jets and all the turnover potential from Darnold and Prater, because the Lions may fail to convert the 10 red zone trips they're probably going to see.
All right. Just a quick note on the Galladay running in 2 wide receiver sets things. That is true, but it's probably not much of a concern because they're a top 3 team in terms of 3 wide receiver percentage. So Tate's going to be out there still.
But matchup may see why not.
All right. Last game, Rams at the Raiders, finishing us with the second Monday night game. Rams are favored by 4. Over-under is 45. For the Rams on the road team kicking us off here, Rams get to play the Raiders. They were bottom 10 against opposing quarterbacks before they traded Mack. He's a fringe quarterback 1, a high quarterback 2. If they hadn't skipped all the entire preseason, I'd be even more confident about his situation. I just am a little worried about rust or a little bit of a slow start in this one. But overall, you still probably are fine starting Goff off. They were middling run defense in 2017 for the Raiders. They allowed 4 20-plus weeks and 14 double digits total. Gurley is a safe top 3 play. Do not even hesitate. Get him in your starting lineup. I don't even know why I'm talking about Gurley this much. Wide receivers killed the Raiders in 2017, especially if they were fast. Cooks, Hill, Benjamin, Wallace, Tyrell Williams all went for 14-plus against them. The order I would rank the receivers this week is I'm going to be Cooks would be my favorite, and then Kupp second, Woods third. I've got Cooks as a low 2, and I've got Kupp and Woods as 3s. Even though they're rusty, this defense is not going to be good, and I like all 3 this week. Raiders are bottom 10 against tight ends as well. Higbee and 9 tight ends finished with over 10 fantasy points and half-point PPR. Higbee is getting the start. Everett may not play. If you're looking for a really, really sneaky, deep name, I don't hate Tyler Higbee this week. Rams defense, Zerline, both obvious starts. Don't even think about it, even if with the weird playing surface in Oakland. On to the Raiders. Rams improved an already top 10 defense against quarterbacks from last year. Carr is a sit in 1 quarterback leagues. I'd even try to bench him in superflex formats. None of us even bothered ranking him this week.
Fuck no.
Carr?
Yep.
Yeah, no. Nope.
He's busted.
Rams were awful against running backs in 2017, though. They were 3rd worst in the NFL. They had 7 games at 20-plus fantasy points to opposing running back. They did add Sue, so that should get better, but their linebacking core is horrendous. So Lynch is dealing with a groin injury. I'm not loving him, but there is some upside to him. I think he should be an RB3 for you. Doug Martin is also a possible running back 4 if you're looking for kind of a desperation type play, or if Lynch doesn't go. I actually really like Martin this week. Rams also got smoked by slot receivers last year, but they were solid to excellent against outside type guys, and they just continued to bolster their outside secondary. Cooper runs a lot of his plays out of the slot now, so I actually really like Cooper as a wide receiver 2 this week. Jordy is a complete bench for me. He's going to draw outside coverage. He probably gets sacrificed to Peters in this game. I have no interest in Jordy Nelson or any other receiver they've
Human
got on that team.
sacrifices to Marcus Peters.
And Peters or Talib, because
Talib, yeah, it's no better. Either side is going to be awful. Whoever runs out of the slot, which I think they probably move Cooper there, is the only play that's worth looking at. Rams were mediocre against tight ends. They were bottom half. They lost a few linebackers in the offseason as well. So if you're looking for a streamer, Cook is not a terrible play if you're in a really bad spot. Say you have George Kittle. And then Raiders defense should not be considered or Mike Nugent till we figure out if this team is even going to win a game this year.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for the game previews. Real quickly, I want to go through the Aaron Hernandez Golden Handcuff Award. I'm assuming there's no drop.
Oh, there is a drop.
Oh. I meant new drop. Okay, that makes sense. All right.
I figured it would.
Yeah.
Your 4 nominees for the Golden Handcuff Award this year. We should have done this Wednesday when we had more free time. Trevor Davis, wide receiver, Green Bay, arrested for making a bomb threat joke at the LA airport.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Robbie Anderson, wide receiver for the New York Jets, arrested for speeding at 105 mile an hour in a 45 mile an hour zone. As he was getting arrested, told he was going to fuck the arresting officer's wife, fuck her, and nut in her eye.
That is
amazing.
fucking fantastic.
Charges eventually got dropped outside the speeding ticket. I am not sure why.
Well, I don't know that there's a charge for personally insulting somebody. So, I mean, there is that.
Christian Kirk got arrested for disorderly conduct at the Phoenix Open, accused of being high on cocaine at the time, and then proceeded to get drafted by the Cardinals, who play in the Phoenix area.
He's just living his best life. There's nothing wrong with that. It was the
doing him.
offseason.
Yeah.
He's doing him.
He just got drafted. He's fine.
And then last, we have Mikhail Kendricks, linebacker, who is now a free agent. He got indicted for insider trading involving $10,000 Eagles tickets and car services given to a financial advisor at Goldman Sachs for insider trading tips. He has now pled guilty and faces up to 25 years in prison.
White collar crime's boring.
Not this one.
No, this one's pretty boring.
All right, votes were in. Hopper voted for Robbie Anderson, if you couldn't tell from his commentary.
Yeah.
Of course I did.
Dan and I voted for Mikhail Kendricks, and I think, Dan, you agree with me on this one. It's really unique for a football crime.
It is unique. I will give you
Yes.
that. It's unique for a football crime. Although I haven't heard of anybody threatening to nut in a police officer's eye either. So there is that.
And then on top of it, just the fact that he may face up to 25 years in jail.
Yeah,
It'll
he gets that.
Since
I
he pled
doubt he
guilty,
gets that.
it won't
Yeah.
it won't get that. But just on the fact that it's that significant of a penalty, he's going to be doing at least a few years in prison.
Are we really giving our Golden Handcuffs award to somebody who got indicted on the same charges as Martha freaking Stewart?
Yes, we are. It was kind of a boring year for arrests.
Robbie Anderson, not boring.
It was interesting, but he got all the charges dropped, which really hurt
I
him
don't
in my
care about
eyes.
the end result. I care about the hilarity of the situation.
Robbie Anderson was my second choice, but
Yes.
Kendricks just for uniqueness and just how close to the season that it happened.
Yeah. Bomb threat at an LA airport, that's just stupidity.
That also
Same
made
as
me
being
laugh.
high on cocaine.
Well,
At the Phoenix Open.
he didn't hurt anybody. He was
Oh, so
living his best
he threw
life.
rocks at cars. He could have hurt people.
Look, he was just helping them get an insurance claim. They needed new paint jobs.
Yes.
All right,
Okay,
so
let's wrap it up.
one last reminder for you guys. We will be live 10:30 a.m. on Sunday, streaming on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. Bring all your questions for us. Tweet them at Beer Fueled FF. Drop comments on the Friday episode. I'll keep a track of all of them there to read off, or drop them in the comments section when we're live. One last shout out to Squad QL for sponsoring the show. You can find us at Beer Fueled FF on Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped. I am Nick Sparts. We have Dan Thury.
At 30 BFF.
We have Christopher Hopper.
At Hot BFF with 2 Ps.
Thank you so much for listening, guys. Good luck in week 1, and we will catch you guys next time on Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. See you Sunday.
Peace, bitches.
See ya, everybody. Later.
Bye.